Are you struggling to regain sustainability in your life and create a positive life stance? If so, listen in as courageous women share their empowering struggle of how they came through the trenches to restart and recreate a victorious life worth living. They took their power back. Learn the secrets of how they did it, and you can too. Welcome to the Real Heart Talk podcast and 360 Network for Women. And here's your host, Pamela Duran.
Welcome, Real Heart Talk listeners. You are enough. We have a special surprise. It's Carolyn Deck, and she is a world-renowned author. She was raised in New Zealand. She takes courage to conquer past childhood pain. She used the secrets hidden in the dark crevices of her life to overcome her own fears and disappointments and hurts. In her teens, she traveled as an international student, spending 12 months in Kansas, USA. Upon her return, she embarked on a career in the travel industry, becoming an area manager in her mid-20s. Having spent 25 years away from her homeland, Carolyn is no stranger to change, traveling to over 20 countries and experiencing many adventures and trials along the way. With her best friend and husband, Brendan, of 32 years, they have lived in Australia and America while raising their 5 children. Now, in her 60s, she's embarking on a new adventure. She's a published author. Her hope is to empower others through her story, highlighting the truth that our choices matter and how we respond is key to overcome past pain while becoming the best that we can be. It's her message and passion for all to know. There is a living hope that transforms you, taking you on a journey to a life never thought possible. Welcome, Carolyn Deck.
Hi, Pamela. Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yes, we have so much to talk about. So I want to go back to your bio and just talk about what was your pain. You said you had a lot of childhood pain and you used that to really conquer it and overcome it and start taking your power back. And we're Christians, and I'm really thankful for that space here. And I just want you to share from your heart.
Yes, thank you. Well, essentially, because I don't want to focus too much on this, but I grew up in a family, a big sister, parents married happily, and with any marriage, let me tell you, it's not perfect because 2 imperfect people come and unite, right? And so it's tough. Marriage is tough. And we bring our own baggage into any relationship. And sadly, as a little girl, I watched love go in one door and out the other. There was dysfunction that was scary, quite frankly, to watch and witness. And then the unraveling of this marriage, the disappointment, then the abuse of alcohol, prescribed drugs. And at times, sadly, yes, there was violence. And I would run off into the park as yet another night, the police would arrive. So when I listened to an amazing show with Oprah Winfrey, and it's her Audible book actually, and she highlights the question of what happened to you, not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And I love listening to Rick Warren, the Daily Hope Message, and he talks about our shape. And our shape, he's a pastor, so he talks about the spiritual gift that we're given, which is unique to all of us. So that's your S. Your H is your heart. Your A is your ability. P is your personality, and E is your experience. And so years on, I paused and I realized that I had taken my experiences as my parents had, and that shaped who I was. And so some of these pains were deeply rooted into the fabric of who I was. And what I was very fortunate to discover was actually that message that God tells us, Romans 8:28, that he can turn all things for good.
Yes.
For those who love and trust him, not for everybody. There is a premise to that promise, and it's for those that love and trust the Lord, and he will use them for his purpose and his glory. And that's exactly what happened. That those, as you read, the dark crevices of my broken little heart as a child, I buried because they were painful. And sometimes when we bury these things, they sow seeds of anger and bitterness and resentment. And sadly, from there, these seeds grow into these ugly forms and personality traits, right? That's the P of who we are. And it's not, I have a line in my book that says that it's not until that we stop and pause and pay attention to what happened in our past that these wounds will actually continue to bleed, leaving a stain on our lives. And that's early on in my book, that the past has purpose, though. And when we allow ourselves to revisit these painful areas of our past, that is when we transform from the inside out. And God does use them for good, and he uses them for purpose. And that is, like you said, that's the purpose of my life now. I've realized this. I don't have bleeding. My scabs are no longer bleeding. I have scars, yes, but so did Jesus. When he rose from the dead, he carried the scars, but they are my scars of victory now. And so that is my purpose, that I want to just shout out that people, we have choices, even when these choices were made for us as children that deeply hurt us, we still have a choice. How are we going to respond? Are we going to leave them and ourselves, our lives, as being victim, or are we going to walk victorious? And that's what I've chosen to do. So that's my message.
Victory. Yes, I love it. Victory. Not a victim, leaving that behind. Because I love what you said, the past has purpose to transform us from the inside out. I've never heard that. And it makes perfect sense. We are being transformed from the inside out.
Yes.
And
why? Because only God, no one else knows our deepest thoughts, our deepest pains. He is that personal. I put a picture up that my son actually took this week in South Australia, and it says, that God shows us every single day through creation, from the sunrise to that beautiful painting in the sky that we see in the morning, and throughout the day, the clouds, the storms, the stars at night, the moon. That amazing almighty creator God knows us and made us and loves us so, so much. He does want to give us the desires of our hearts, and he removes those weeds and those thorns and those destructive elements from within us that we suppress and we hide and we want to cover up, but we just can't, because they just still come out. So he goes, if you come to me, hand it over to me, I will heal all of that. And it is so beautiful because he's so personal. That's what I love.
yeah, yes, he is. And he does know us. I mean, we are knitted. He knitted us in our mother's wombs.
Yes.
He knows our DNA. He knows the purpose and assignment that he gave to each one of us.
Yes.
And a lot of times I think we take detours, and because of the things that we grew up around, or those limiting mindsets that
Yes,
were raising us.
yes,
I think about
yes,
the traditionalism, of the older generation, and we have all that impacting us. So that is stuff that we have to dig up the roots, get all those roots out so that
yeah,
then we can start.
yes.
Go.
So how I suggest we have this mindset is not to throw out necessarily all those traditions, but what I
Right.
encourage people to do, because what I encourage people to do is to truly shake the tree of what we believe. How do you spell believe? Believe.
Yes.
And what I discovered was, from what I believed, there are so many hidden lies that just aren't true. So coming out of a dysfunctional family, I believed, well, if ever I got married, my marriage is going to look like this. It's going to end in ruin. I mean, I live in fear that, oh my gosh, one day, dad will walk out, or, oh, sorry, my husband will walk out, or one day, oh my gosh, it's going to be too much and I'm going to end up an alcoholic, or you're just not good enough. This is the monologue in my head, was you're just hopeless like they are. These lies that we believe. And so I would really encourage everybody who's listening, just take a good long look at some of what you're telling yourself in your head that you believe, some of what you've grown up hearing that you believe. Be careful of what you believe on social media, believe in the news. Some of these traditions, shake that tree of belief and really dig into what is true. And that is actually a really, really hard thing to determine these days. What is true? Because look at the identity crisis. I mean, this is a little controversial, but my sister and my daughter-in-law are teachers.
Mhm.
And sadly, their kids coming to school that believe they're cats.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I mean, that's the extreme.
Yeah.
And there's everything in between. So at some point, we have to really go back to the beginning of the root of what we believe, because what we believe, we then choose to act on, and what we act on determines the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like the outcome, you got to change how you behave, and that is directly derivative or derived from what you think and what you believe.
Well, and talking about that, the truth, I mean, the word of God is the truth. It's the basis of truth. And what I feel, Carolyn, is a lot of these children did not have any of that in their environment. I mean, a lot of the things people are choosing, it's because of the environment that they were raised in. They didn't have someone like I had my grandparents. My father was an alcoholic as well. And I had my grandmother, and she took us to church, me and my brother, every Sunday. So I'm so thankful for that, because I don't
Yeah.
know, where would I be without them, but
Yeah.
those people poured into you, poured into me. And we are here to pour into you, listeners. If you're listening, if you have
Yeah.
children that are suffering, from the effects of this society, we know the truth. We can go to the word of God. We are creators just as God is. We can speak that truth over our family, over our finances, over our home, over our life, over our children. And
Yes.
it will have favor. They will have
Yes.
favor. They
Yeah.
do have hope.
And so the reason, actually, I just put it out there, I didn't want to write a book. In fact, I was not even really good at school. I just wasn't. And it was definitely a wake up in the night. God said to me, write your story. And people may go, that's just weird. But I've been reading his word. I've been listening to him talk to me through all facets of life. He's he talks to us in so many ways, but I did hear that, not as a big thundering audible voice, but just in my head and in my heart, write your story. And I argued, and that's not always a good idea because ultimately God wins, right? But I
He's
said,
always gonna win.
it's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like me, didn't you know I was useless at school? You should choose my big sister. Like, she's a teacher, she's all over English. Like, no, you got the wrong person. And God goes, really? Oh, is that what you think? Is it? Just look at some of the people in the Bible. King David was a shepherd boy, for goodness sake, right? Abraham was found in the reeds in a basket. So he goes, so I think you know better than that. And also, I just want to tell you, it's not your story. History is spelt his story. He goes, it's my story. I want you to tell the world what I have done in your life, transforming you from the inside out, so that they too can have hope and have understanding of my love for them. And that's what I want you to do. And I will provide all you need to write that book. And I'm like, oh, okay. And you know what? It took 6 years because like I said, I'm not good at school. I was a slow learner, and I didn't always get on to the task at hand, but he was so faithful and he so provided. And this story, my book, I write it, where am I? There we go. As a travel agent, because like I said, my shape, my personality and abilities, and my experiences were all about being a travel agent and traveling the world. And so my book it's like 3-4 pages max, pretty much each chapter. So it's elementary, let me tell you. It's really basic reading. But I do want people to not just read my story, but hear what God has for them, and then do a little reflection. Because to me, what's the point in head knowledge if you can't apply anything? That doesn't change your life. And so I'll give you little reflection questions at the end of each chapter, like where could you discover marvels in your past? I want you to stop and pause and really dig into who you are and who your past is. And wow, imagine if you found some treasure back there that could actually drive you forward to have a future that you can't even imagine is possible. Well, that, people, is what happened to me. And it happens to me continually. So yeah, that's my heart, and that's God's heart, that you meet him in the pages of the book.
Yeah, yes. What is the title of your book, Carolyn?
Above the Turbulence, because I was a travel agent, remember?
Yeah.
And your ticket out of pain to purpose.
That's powerful.
And you know what? I have to tell you, Pamela, this is what I love about God. He goes, I know your story, and I know who it's going to reach, and I know you have light and hope. But you know what, Carolyn? You need to heal first. And so what he did, he very gently took me back, not to relive it, because I don't want to relive my past. It was terrifying at times. And there's dysfunction, sadly, that still has remnant today, because that generational pain can continue. So he goes, no, I don't want you to relive it, but you need to visit back there. You need to understand some of the truths that actually are hiding back there, not the lies. And I'm going to gently and quietly and lovingly walk you through that, so that then when you come out, then you'll have a powerful message to help people in their pain. And you'll give them tools to have this incredible life, to be able to fly above the turbulence, like I said, to have a perspective bigger than themselves, to experience the source and power that is beyond them. Yeah, I just am in awe as what he has done.
He's just an awesome, awesome guy. That's what he does as we are pouring our heart out, and your crevices. I love how you said that, your crevices of pain out on the paper and
Mm.
revisiting that from a healing perspective. So did you have like a favorite place that you wrote, or did you like start all the way from the beginning, like when things started getting rough? I mean, how did you approach it?
Yeah, good
If you
question.
sharing, yeah.
And just to tell you, the crevices of those dark pains, that actually was a trip I took about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I was in France, and it is actually from the famous artist Da Vinci.
Uh,
So here's a classic example. Here's me going, oh yeah, I know Da Vinci. He's that painter guy, right? Well, when I went to where he spent the last 5 years of his life, I discovered he was so much more than a painter, and I had no idea. And that was his quote on the roof that I saw in this museum. What if you're just brave enough to go back to those dark places? What if you go back there and just maybe there's life hiding in those dark places? And I learned that from him. And I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. So to your question, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do. So when God tells you something, he says you need to confirm it. So I told my friend, who just so happened to be our pastor's wife. I said, Tammy, you won't believe it. God's called me to write a book. Like, how ridiculous is that? She goes, awesome. I'm writing one too. We'll be accountability buddies. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, well, you're excited. Well, I guess I could get excited. So she said, so what you need to do is, my suggestion anyway, is to start with a book called To Be Told, How to Co-Author Your Future. And it was like, oh, okay. So I grabbed that book, and that's where he took me back. That book and the book study took me back to my childhood. And that's where I started. That's where I learned the scaffolding to write this book. And I was on a journey. I had no idea what I was doing. So I'm just following these instructions and to go back, and I rediscovered my name. Like, I didn't really like my name. So you'll learn about that, our names. And all throughout the Bible, what does God do? The importance of names. Names
Yes.
are so important. And so you'll see and read the discovery I found as to my name. It meant strong. I'm like, actually, yeah, I am strong. That's part of my personality. Sometimes my husband doesn't like it, neither do my kids, because I'm kind of strongly opinionated sometimes. And sometimes I've just learned, like the Lord said, yeah, well, there is a color. It's not just black, and there's not just white. There's a gray. So maybe you can just dial your passion and your opinions, dial those down a little bit, because it needs to be said in love. Yes, truth is there. And so these are the things I learned. And I wrote 60,000 words. And what they call it is writer's vomit. I just threw it down and
Yeah.
threw it. I didn't throw it out there. I just threw it down on paper. And then I went to a writing conference. I invested in myself. I asked my husband, I said, look, can I invest in going to school? Because I didn't get past high school. Can I go back to school? And then can I go to this conference? Because I really need to learn. I'm serious about this. God's serious about this. I need to invest in myself, and I need to go to school. So I did. I went to school. And that's where I condensed my 60,000 words down to what we have today, this book. And that's where I learned at this school. And Chandler Bolt is the CEO of, what's it called now? Selfpublishing.com.
Okay.
If you're thinking about writing, you don't know how, but you have a story. Your story is important. Let me tell you, your words are important. He has a book that he published called Published, from blank page to published author. And so I went to that conference, and okay, I have to tell you this story. I'm a bit of a storyteller, but this is crazy. I met a man there called Eric Mills, And actually, he was like our Uber driver. Us girls were in the lobby. We didn't know each other. We were sort of finding our team. And he's standing there and he goes, girls, do you need a lift to the conference? And we're like, oh, hello, who are you? I'm Eric and I'm at the conference. Oh, sure, that'd be great. So that night we were gathered around the fire. And I said to Eric, oh, are you exhausted? I mean, that was exhausting. So tell me, what are you writing about and who are you? And, what's your story? So he told me. And then he said, and I've started a foundation and it's called Faces with Names. And I said, what's that about? And he showed me this brochure. And I nearly burst into tears because he had no idea.
Oh.
50 years prior, I was this little girl who loved all things Africa. It was a seed planted in my heart. And I loved Africa. I would sketch the lion heads and the tall giraffe and the elephant. I love elephant. And I just thought in my head one day, who knows, one day I'll go. Well, guess what? I'm a travel agent. I take time off. And here I am in my mid-20s. I'm in the Serengeti. I'm in Africa. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, am I seriously here? Like from this little 10-year-old to now 26 or something or other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I'm in the Serengeti. There's not much going on there, let me tell you. And then out came these little faces. And I didn't know their names. And we didn't speak English. Well, sorry, they didn't speak English, but we spoke the language of humanity. Like I could see the smile on their face, the hope in their eyes. I don't know where that came from really. Well, I do now, but I didn't. And I'm like, look at these children. Like I'm in their home. I thought I'm just wandering around in no man's land, but I wasn't. I was in their home. And I thought, oh my gosh, one day. And that was that. I moved on about a decade or so later. Now my daughter's 18. She now goes on mission to Malawi and she's building orphanages. And she comes home with these little faces, these orphan faces. And I'm like, they're those little faces again. And then here's Eric. And he showed me his brochure of these little faces. And I just burst into tears. I'm like, only God can drop those dots and have them align, right? For such a time.
God. Yep. God meetings. Yep.
So the reason I tell you that is because all book sales go to Faces with Names. And God bless me, in March this year, I went to Uganda and I met these orphaned and I met these widows. And let me tell you, I've never felt so embraced and welcome and loved. I've never had so many cuddles from so many little kids in all my life. I mean, their love and life just oozed. And it's because of this mission that 3 people, essentially Eric, had in his heart from his story to care for orphans. And then Pastor Daniel and his wife, Mama Erica, they were orphans, and now they look after over 200 orphan children. It is so precious. So you see, I'm just showing you how big God is. Like we are so consumed with ourselves and our own focus. And when we just open our hearts and have a higher perspective, oh my gosh, I would never have dreamed in a million years that I would be involved in something so awesome as this. And that's Ephesians 3:20,
Yes.
exceedingly abundantly beyond what you would ever wish, dream, or hope for. Yes. That is what he is capable of doing, not me. And so I just get so excited because now I have this life mission with these kids. And it's not about so much my story, but the story of God in this book, and know that every sale will help those children and that will change their life, their community, maybe even their country, maybe even all of Africa. Who knows what God's up to?
Yes, you're definitely a hope dealer, Carolyn. I just applaud you. So thankful and so blessed to be connected with you and on such a mission. here you go from all this turmoil, and now you're just blossoming. I think we don't even know who we are till we get past 50 anyways. I
Yeah.
mean, you keep trying all these things, what am I
Yes.
doing? I love that you got to travel. I love to travel, but I haven't been to all the exotic places yet. I'm gonna keep, that in mind a lot of, but God is really, because you believe, you sought out the truth, and you changed your mindset and self-talk. And that is so important in today, is that self-talk, because you are above and not beneath. You are first and not last. You are the lender, not the borrower. I mean, you could just speak that word every morning, and that just makes you feel like you can put your shoulders back,
Yep.
stick your chest out. Yes, I
Yes.
am powerful.
Yes. I
Powerful
am who
Carolyn.
God
Powerful.
made me to be. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I write about that in different chapters. One is my power source. When I lost, my phone didn't work. I arrived back home in New Zealand and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Oh my gosh, my itineraries on my phone, all my contacts are on my phone. Oh, this is going to be terrible. And then I mean, oh, that's right, I've got my computer. That's okay. Oh, actually, I can log into the cloud. And then I had this epiphany. I have so much more than just logging into a cloud, that I need a plug to plug into, right? I need electricity for that. Oh no, I have 24/7 access to the creator of that cloud. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love
Yes.
that. And you were saying this monologue in our head. Another chapter, I just talk about being the air traffic controller of our mind. We can go, you know what? No fly zone here. You go.
Yeah.
And that is about the only thing we have power over, almost, is what we allow ourselves to think and hear. And we have such power to change that. That's why I just love choice defined. You want a different future? Well, guess what, people? Get on it. Change how you think.
Yes.
Plug into the almighty God power source and watch this space.
Yeah. Corinthians 10:5 tells us to cast down those imaginations. We can speak those, take them captive and cast them down. And just because you think a thought doesn't make it true. And you don't have to believe it. We know, going back to the word, what we know, because that is our base of truth,
Yes.
and we can speak that into our life. So you said in your book, you have
Yes.
some tools. So do you want to share one or two tools with us?
Sure. Well, I've just alluded to one, that this powerful tool of having power of the movement of your mind. No one can do that except for you. That is huge. That is so transforming, actually, when we really make the choice as to our mindset to really shape that tree, and only we can determine and define what we believe. Well, maybe you need to go and examine what you believe. Is that really true? I was talking to a young lady one time, and she was believing, that through astrology, the power of the Northern Star. And so I started questioning her, not to discredit, I guess, but to really shake that tree of belief. Well, hang on a minute. Have you gone back to the fundamentals of what astrology is about? Astrology is just a bunch of guys floating around who really didn't really know, who thought they'd look up to the stars, and then they've sort of created this fundamental belief on something they're not even that sure on, to be honest, right? And I'm like, well, what about just opening your mind a little bit further to the possibility of tapping into the power, not of the Northern Star, but tapping into the possibility of the power of the creator who made that Northern Star, who knows you intimately, loves you, who died for you. He came off his throne because he loved you. There's no religion on the planet where their God did that. Because you know why? All man's religion is man-based. They can't
Yes.
possibly do that.
Right.
And they haven't done that. And so for me, you know, people say, oh, you're so religious. I say, no, I'm not. I'm not religious at all. I have a relationship with a God who came off his throne to meet me, whereas all religion is all about you being good enough and hoping to be striving enough so that you're going to be good enough. Well, guess what, people? We're never going to be good enough. That's the harsh truth and reality, is we're not good enough. And that's the difference. God knows that. He knows our humanness, and he came down to say, you need to get to know me better. So I'm going to come down as a man. So then you can see me, you can touch me, you can eat with me, talk with me. And then he died for us, but then he rose again. You know, that's not religion. That's relationship in a living God who just cares so much. I just love that. It's amazing. So test it. I encourage you, go test that. Go test that out and see if you don't hear from him, or because, you know, there's that verse, isn't there? For those that really, truly seek me and with all their heart, I can promise you, you will find me.
Yes. Jeremiah 29. Yeah.
Yes.
And that is the love. It's so unconditional. And you know how the wave of generations are moving. I mean, they haven't experienced that, so they can't comprehend that, you know, until they really meet our creator, you know, meet and have that intimate one-on-one conversation.
Yes.
And experience. It's really an experience, you know, then they'll understand that unconditional love. It's not if this, then that. It's
Right.
I love you.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how many times you up, how many patterns that you keep repeating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just
Sure.
he loves you and waiting for you to just accept that love. And then as you tell us to go back and what has marveled us. Because that I love that. I love that you have that in your book, because I mean, I'm thinking about that for my own self. What are things, you know, that marveled me as a young child or even a teenager in my college years, you know, that I would have pursued.
Mm.
So, you know, people, everyone listening, think, just have some reflection time.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
a
where you
thought.
should start. Just have
Yeah.
some reflection time.
Yeah. You know, you asked what tools are there. Well, when I did my book launch, my dear friend here in Chicago said to me, you know, that's kind of powerful for me to actually stop and know who I am. And one of my photos is I was involved in a photo campaign called Be You.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And this is another tool. I'm saying people, and my friend Amy said this, she goes, yeah, I am going to stop and pause, because maybe I've spent all my life being somebody I thought I should be, or I'm somebody that I heard my parents say that I am. You know, I
Mhm.
look at my dear, dear sweet mother, who I love dearly, and I look at her life, and she said to me once, so, you know, your dad introduced you to your faith because he was a man of faith, albeit he made some pretty bizarre choices, as we all do, right? I said that at the very beginning. Broken people come together. You know, no one's perfect. And so even that taught me a lesson. But Mum said, so what have I taught you? And I
Mm.
said, this is hard to hear. But Mum, you have taught me how not to live, actually.
Mhm.
She has spent her entire life still hearing what she overheard her parents say about her when she was like 5 years old. And she's 87 now.
Wow.
And out of that, who she believed she was because of what she overheard her mother say, so defined her life.
Mm.
So that's why I can't keep saying it enough. I want people to truly know who you are. And to truly know who you are, you really need to dig into who the Creator says you are, not who your parents, there are unexpected parents, but there are no unexpected children, let me tell you. So you may think you're worthless because your parents didn't plan you. Well, guess what? God did. So you can dismiss that lie straight off the bat. So if you want to truly know who you are, go to the manual, basic instruction before leaving Earth. A homeless man told me that on the streets of Chicago. I love it. The Bible, he said, he's the creator. It's the living word. It's true. So why don't you just for a minute pause and go and see what God says about you?
Yeah.
Then you might really be like, oh my gosh, really? Am I really that cherished, loved, to die for person? That's a funny cliche. Oh, to die for? Well, guess what? He did, because he loved you that much.
Yes.
So we can start there. I think that's a tool. Start at foundational level. Nothing is strong if it has a weak foundation. That's a Bible verse, isn't it? That's a Bible story. You build a house in the sand, guess what happens?
Right.
You need to build on the rock.
Yes.
Firm. So,
Firm foundation. So I'm glad that you brought up your mom, the older generation, because I feel like, all those people, I know we've had several in my family have passed in the last year or 2 years. And then we have one patriarch in our family that's left. I think he'll be 88 or 89 this year. So how does your book have anything for them in it to rise above the turbulence of their life? Because they've lived through a lot. When they came along, there wasn't cell phones, there wasn't Uber, there wasn't the internet, and I don't know if all of them have even adopted that, but do you address any of their issues that they're going through? And a lot of them are going through depression. Maybe they've lost a spouse, they're trying to deal with,
sure.
what to do with their house or their things. So
Sure.
what
It's such a beautiful question. I love that. Yes. Well, I believe it is a human question. It doesn't matter how old you are. Look at children today trying to seek who they are. Teenagers, middle-aged kids. Yes, they're aged. They get to that point and it's like, what's this all about? Rick Warren actually wrote that book, right? Purpose-Driven Life. And he started by saying, it's not about you. Wow, ouch. That's kind of hard to hear for some people. But what I love with the Lord is that mercies start new every day. And you look at Abraham and Sarah, that's a big part of my book, actually, that name, Isaac. And this looking at the story of Abraham and Sarah. Sarah laughed in the face of God. Well, not really in the face because she was in the tent next door. But she goes, doesn't he know, like, I'm in my 90s? Don't be stupid. And I'm barren. What hope is there for me? And then Abraham, for 10 years, I think it was, he had to walk around and tell people, well, God said, I'm going to be the father of many nations. And they're like, yeah, right. How old are you? How many kids have you got? Oh, well, none. Is that not the craziest story? But look what God did, right? So I love your question because, yes, there is a message of hope in here for everybody, no matter how old you are, how you identify yourself, because the truth is you are still made by God. He gives you your breath in your lungs every day. He is that close. And we're just passing through. I'm a citizen of Earth. Actually, I'm a bit over 3 countries, so I'm not quite sure where I belong sometimes. But anyway, that's another story. But my dad did teach me that actually, when I say yes to Jesus, that gives me a ticket out of my pain to purpose to be a child of God. I'm an heir of the kingdom of God. I am a princess, actually. I can walk around with my head high. I'm a princess. And I can taste heaven on earth, right? Because he promises that. But this is the universal hope I think people perhaps are struggling with, is who am I? What am I doing here? And what happens after this? Well, you and I know, and for the aged, they may go, well, I've wasted my life. This is a disaster. Well, no, it's not. This is just like a breath. You have eternity. What is that? We can't even really fathom eternity, but you have an eternity ahead of you. But to my point, choice defines where your destiny lies is what you choose to believe and who you choose to believe in. And heaven awaits. It's awesome. I'm excited. And we're not going to be just floating around on clouds. There's going to be an exciting, he talks so much about what we can expect. But interestingly, I know Rick Warren talks on this, God actually talks more about hell than heaven to wake people up to the realization that, yes, there will be a day and a time when it's too late. And
Yes.
no choice is a choice. You've made your choice. And he doesn't want anybody missing out on all the glory and the eternity and the love and no more suffering, no more pain. This body, I've had 3 hips replaced. I've got gammy knees. My spine's all crooked. I'm getting wrinkly and old, but who cares? What I have to look forward to, the hope of heaven for all eternity. Oh my gosh, who doesn't want that?
I know. You made such a good point. We are just passing through. This is not the final destination. And I am going to quote you on this. Jesus is my ticket out of my pain to purpose. That is, I love that quote. I'm going to quote you on that. And it is just the realization and the knowing, right? Your book is going to provide so much knowledge for people. And it sounds like it's on, where they can understand it. I know that you're talking about, I'm not a writer, I didn't even do good at school, but people need to have it understand, be it understood, and they need to understand what they're reading. And it sounds like that it is very understandable. People can comprehend it, they can grasp it. And I don't know if some way in your book to connect with them, or if they come to Jesus through your book.
No,
and I know
please.
all your what is it? Sorry.
Yes, I said, yes, please connect with me. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. My book is available on Amazon. And I just want to go one step further with what you said, that yes, it will give them a lot of knowledge, right? But that means nothing, actually, in my opinion. Yeah, you can be knowledgeable, but where does that lead you? What I think, and I was on a interview earlier today, and I just love the fact that God wants us to know him, but he loves us so much. He doesn't just want that. He wants to move us from where we are to something so much better and more beautiful and healed, right? And so that is where the application comes in. Otherwise, head knowledge means nothing, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't change your life just because you know something, right? It's when you apply that knowledge. I think that's what God calls wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't want people just knowing this stuff and going, oh, well, that was nice. I really want people to go, wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I want to change in this area. I want to feel that, well, not just feel, but I mean, our emotions are really important. God gave them to us, but I want them to experience the power of freedom, the freedom of fear, right?
Yes.
What does God say? I don't give you a spirit of fear. That comes from the devil. That's Satan. And there's good and evil, people. good is God, evil is from the evil one, the father of all lies, Satan himself and all his demonic power. So that's another thing we need to wake up to. That knowledge, they may not even realize that is knowledge, but what the power is when you apply that and go, heck, I need to armor up with the strength of God in my life, or else I'm just going to keep falling to the power of Satan, because that's what he wants. He wants to destroy your life. He wants you to live in fear. He wants you a victim, right? He wants to destroy your relationships. He wants you, just think of everything bad. And that is the desire of the evil one.
Yes, we have to apply that blood, the blood of Jesus. That's what's
Yes.
going. Put that seal upon us, write our name in the book of life.
Yes.
Get our ticket out of here.
But we want to bring people with us, right?
Yes,
So I
that's
don't
what
want
I'm saying.
it about me.
Come with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. I want anybody who reads this, I want to see them in heaven.
Yeah. Well, so how can people connect with you, Carolyn? This has been wonderful and so powerful. And I appreciate your time today. Tell us how we can connect with you.
Sure. So Carolyn, like I said, my name used to trip me up. CAROLYN.Deck, lowercase, on Instagram. Or just type in my name on Google search, and you'll probably see the Amazon link for my book, and my Facebook link. So just go into Facebook and type my name and you'll find me there as well.
Okay. Well, I know you're going to be doing some traveling, but do you have another book in mind, or what is your next big God
Yes.
application?
Yeah, sure. Well, hope my son doesn't mind me paying him out here. He goes, Mom, you realize I'm not a reader. I'm a bit like you. I wasn't that great at school. I'm probably not going to read your book. Can you hurry up and do an audio? So I am working on recording my own book. One of my coaches said to me, oh my gosh, with your accent, you need to hurry up and get it on Audible. So I'm working on that.
Okay.
And I'm also working on getting a workbook to go alongside this, because again, I think it's the application is where you change your life. So those are two things that are really heartfelt for me, that I need to crack on and do. And it's like, okay, Lord, help, because I get so distracted, right? And I enjoy life too much sometimes. It's like I get taken off course a little bit, but yeah, so I need a little more discipline to, have these goals and be definitive in those, so that then I can achieve what he's asked me to do, in his strength, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And when you take those small steps, you do get momentum and you do feel that power and that awareness, and just his presence. You feel that leading. And when you've misstepped. So,
But
and
he's so
you
gentle.
yeah,
He spoke to me, how I said I heard him. Well, he spoke to me just recently. I was in the car driving back from Kentucky, and I was listening to two women in their podcast. And it was there, listening to some of the pain and the gentleness in their voice, that I actually heard the Lord say to me, yeah, are you getting this? You're so busy serving, you've forgotten in your service to have my heart, a servant heart. You're just focus on the doing. I am more concerned about people's hearts, and you forgot that. And I'm just like, oh, yes, you're so. And so Jesus spoke to me about that. And he said, it's okay. I just want you to know you need to start again. But you need to start with the right motivation. It's not about how many likes, shares, comments you get, how many books you've sold. That is up to me, actually. What I want you to do is re-examine your heart and be like in John, I think chapter 3, was it? I had it here somewhere, where he had this servant heart and he washed the disciples' feet, including Judas, the one that was about to betray him. He goes, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not interested in what you do, honestly. I just aren't. I am more interested in your heart. So he's so lovely and so kind and so gentle. And he picked me up again and said, come on then, let's go. Now you know.
Yes, and everyone listening, that is exactly what Jesus says for you, for me. As you heard Carolyn's story, he picks us up, he loves us, he pushes us along. He's like, okay, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You know, he's just right there. He's our biggest cheerleader and our biggest fan. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us today and sharing your heart, your message about your book. I can't wait to get it and read it myself and listen to the audio. I love audio books as well. So thank you.
And don't forget, people, faces with names. So if you're interested, you can sponsor a child, you can donate. All that money goes to these kids and it's making a huge impact in their lives, and it's giving them hope and a future. So it's always bigger than ourselves. So yes, Faces with Names International.org.
Okay. I'll include that in the show notes as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Pamela.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. And stay tuned to the next episode. And remember, you're just passing through. Jesus is your ticket out of your pain into your purpose.
And you are enough.
Yes, you
Amen.
are.
Thank you for joining us today on the 360 Network for Women and Real Heart Talk podcast. We're so happy you could join and hope you stay tuned for the next episode.